Every time you step into a chlorinated swimming pool or a hot tub, your body's outer defenses undergo an immediate, measurable structural alteration.
Yeah, they really do.
I mean, we usually think of a summer swim as just this simple, refreshing way to cool off. You jump in, paddle around, and dry off, right?
Right. It feels completely harmless.
But underneath that simple pleasure, there's an actual microscopic turf war happening on and inside your body. The chemical environment of recreational water just violently clashes with the delicate biological ecosystems that actually keep us healthy.
And that clash is genuinely profound when you examine it at a cellular level. It's not a minor thing.
Welcome to this deep dive. Today, we are exploring the hidden biological interactions between our bodies and recreational waters.
Right, because we really want to unpack why that post-swim itch you get isn't just a minor annoyance.
Exactly. It's actually the visible fallout of a complex microbial battle, and we will also outline exactly how you can protect yourself without giving up your summer fun.
To understand the stakes here, we are pulling from a pretty diverse stack of sources today. We're looking at dermatological studies on skin barrier disruption, evolutionary research detailing the anomalies of the human microbiome.
Yeah, that evolutionary stuff is wild.
It really is. And we're also pulling from clinical guidelines established by gynecologists and menopause specialists.
So when you synthesize all this research together, it becomes incredibly clear that chlorinated swimming pools, or hot tubs, structurally alter the very defenses your body relies on to function.
They do. And to get a handle on this, we really have to start at the outermost layer of those defenses.
Right, the skin. Before we even look at the internal ecosystems, let's look at what chemically treated water does to our physical armor.
Well, the human skin barrier is just an incredibly sophisticated piece of biological engineering. Specifically, we need to look at the stratum corneum.
Which is the outermost layer of the epidermis, right?
Exactly. Dermatologists often describe this layer using a brick and mortar analogy.
Okay, I like a good analogy.
It helps visualize it. So the bricks are these flattened, dead skin cells called corneocytes. They are packed with tough keratin.
Got it. Bricks are the dead cells.
And the mortar holding them together consists of natural lipids, so things like ceramides, cholesterol, fatty acids, along with sebum.
And that creates the waterproof seal.
Right. That mortar creates a seal that keeps environmental pathogens out and keeps your internal moisture locked safely inside.
Okay, let's unpack this. Our sources heavily focus on a metric called TEWL, transepidermal water loss.
Yes, TEWL is a crucial metric here.
If our skin is a waterproof seal, how exactly does chlorine affect that metric?
So transepidermal water loss measures the exact amount of water that passively evaporates from the inside of your body through the epidermis and out into the surrounding air.
Okay.
When you introduce chlorine, you introduce a highly reactive oxidizing agent.
Which doesn't play nice with the skin.
Not at all. Furthermore, swimming pool water is purposely maintained at an alkaline pH, usually between 7.2 and 7.8.
To optimize the chlorine's disinfecting power, right?
Exactly. But human skin is naturally acidic. It sits at a pH of around 4.7.
Oh, wow. That's a big difference.
A huge difference. When you submerge acidic skin in an alkaline chlorinated solution, a chemical reaction occurs that essentially saponifies or just dissolves those essential lipids.
It dissolves the mortar.
Yes. The chlorine acts as a solvent on the mortar holding your skin cells together. The cohesion between the cells weakens, the barrier fractures, and internal water rapidly escapes.
Our sources actually included a study comparing the skin barrier function of elite swimmers to football players after a 2-hour training session.
And the contrast there was just staggering.
The data paints a very clear picture of that structural alteration.
It really does. The football players, even though they were sweating heavily during their land-based training, they showed only a mild increase in water loss.
But the swimmers were a totally different story.
Entirely different. Their transepidermal water loss spiked from a baseline of 8.5 grams per square meter per hour all the way to 14.3 immediately after their pool session.
And it stayed elevated long after they got out of the water.
Which is key.
Right. It indicates the structural damage to the stratum corneum doesn't just magically vanish when you dry off with a towel.
No, it doesn't. That sustained elevation means the physical integrity of the skin has been compromised.
And what happens when that system breaks down?
When that brick and mortar system breaks down, it creates a cascade effect. It's known as microbiome dysbiosis.
Because the skin is normally coated in healthy bacteria.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Native healthy bacteria like Staphylococcus epidermidis, they produce antimicrobial peptides to protect us.
But the chlorine wipes them out.
It wipes them out while simultaneously stripping the lipids. This dual attack is the biological reason chronic swimmers struggle with severely dry, itchy, inflamed skin, and even post-swim acne.
The localized ecosystem is just thrown into total chaos.
Complete chaos.
Wait, we use chlorine because it keeps us safe from dangerous pathogens like E. coli or whatever else might be floating around in a public pool. Are we saying the cure is worse than the disease?
Well, no. The public health benefits of water chlorination are undeniably vital. Broad-spectrum disinfection halts the spread of severe waterborne diseases that historically caused massive outbreaks.
So we definitely need it.
We do. The issue lies in the fact that chlorine does not discriminate.
It just kills everything.
Right. Its oxidative mechanism destroys the cell walls of harmful pathogens and protective native flora with equal prejudice. It wipes the slate completely clean.
Which leaves us vulnerable.
Yes. And additionally, there is a complex secondary reaction we really have to consider here.
Okay, what's that?
When free chlorine interacts with organic matter in the pool like human sweat, skin oils, or urine, it forms chemical compounds called disinfection byproducts, or DBPs.
Our clinical sources flagged specific DBPs like trihalomethanes, which sound incredibly harsh.
They are volatile chemical compounds, and they present a unique challenge because they can easily penetrate a compromised skin barrier.
The barrier that the chlorine just broke down.
Exactly. A multi-year hospital study conducted in Spain tracked participants exposed to these byproducts in indoor swimming pools.
And what did they find?
The researchers identified a measurable heightened risk of bladder cancer among those who were regularly exposed to high levels of trihalomethanes.
Wow. Bladder cancer.
Yeah. The chemical absorbs through the structurally altered skin, enters the bloodstream, and is eventually filtered through the bladder.
Highlighting how deeply surface-level pool chemicals can interact with our internal biology.
It's not just a surface issue at all.
So if an alkaline, chlorinated environment can inflict that level of structural damage on the tough, keratinized outer layer of our skin, the impact must be exponentially more severe on our delicate, unkeratinized mucous membranes.
The vulnerability of mucosal tissues really cannot be overstated.
Because they don't have those tough bricks, right?
Right. Unlike the outer skin, mucous membranes lack that tough outer layer of dead cells. They are highly permeable living tissues.
Which brings us to the internal ecosystems.
Yes. To understand the threat, we have to examine the human vaginal microbiome, which relies on a shockingly specific biological environment to maintain its structural integrity and immune defense.
The evolutionary research we reviewed in Frontiers in Microbiology frames the human vaginal microbiome as a complete anomaly in the animal kingdom.
It is entirely singular. It really is.
How so?
Well, if we look at the vaginal microbiomes of other mammals, like monkeys, cows, dogs, or even our closest primate relatives, their microbial populations are highly diverse, but they contain less than 1% lactobacillus bacteria.
Less than 1%.
Yeah. Consequentially, their vaginal pH is nearly neutral. It typically sits somewhere between 5.4 and 7.8.
But a healthy human vaginal microbiome operates on a totally different set of rules. We are talking about an environment dominated by over 70% lactobacillus bacteria.
It's a massive difference.
So the human vaginal microbiome is like a highly exclusive club, and the lactobacilli are the bouncers, keeping the pH so incredibly low that the opportunistic, disease-causing bacteria can't even get through the door.
I love that analogy, and what's fascinating here is the precise biological mechanism those bouncers use to actually control the environment.
How to do it?
The vaginal epithelial cells are constantly producing and shedding a complex carbohydrate called glycogen.
Okay, glycogen.
And the lactobacilli consume this glycogen through a process of fermentation. The primary byproduct of this fermentation is lactic acid.
Ah, so they eat the glycogen and pump out lactic acid.
Exactly. By constantly pumping out lactic acid, the lactobacilli drive the human vaginal pH down to an incredibly acidic 3.8 to 4.5.
That is super acidic.
It is. This highly acidic armor is the only thing preventing opportunistic pathogens from colonizing the tissue.
For a long time, the scientific community assumed this ultra-acidic environment evolved as a defense mechanism against sexually transmitted diseases, or to protect infants from infections during the trauma of human childbirth.
Right, that was the standard assumption.
But the evolutionary data we reviewed doesn't support those theories at all.
The comparative biology simply doesn't align with those older hypotheses. I mean, other mammals face similar infectious pressures during reproduction, but never evolved this acidic defense.
So where did it come from?
The current evolutionary theory points toward a massive shift in human behavior. The agricultural revolution.
Oh, wow. Farming.
Yeah. When early humans transitioned from foraging to farming, they introduced massive quantities of starch into their daily diets.
And digesting all that agricultural starch fundamentally altered our internal ecosystems by increasing systemic glucose.
It created this huge biological domino effect. Higher systemic glucose led to significantly higher concentrations of glycogen being deposited into the vaginal mucosal tissue.
So we basically fed the bouncers.
Exactly. Our ancestors inadvertently created a massive constant food supply, like an all-you-can-eat buffet specifically tailored for lactobacilli.
That is so wild.
The lactobacilli capitalized on this abundant food source, rapidly outcompeted all other bacteria, and permanently drove the vaginal pH down. We ate our way into a unique evolutionary defense system.
But since this entire defense system relies on strict acidity to survive, what happened to those lactobacilli when they are suddenly submerged in the chemically treated, highly alkaline water of a recreational pool?
The ecosystem experiences an immediate chemical collision.
It's just a shock to the system.
A huge shock. Swimming pools and hot tubs, as we noted, sit at an alkaline pH of 7.2 to 7.8. The moment a woman enters the water, this alkaline solution makes contact with the vaginal opening and begins neutralizing the localized lactic acid.
Because alkaline cancels out acid.
Right. And because the pH scale is logarithmic, a jump from an acidic 4.0 to a neutral 7.0 represents a massive 1,000-fold decrease in acidity.
1,000-fold. The moment that acidity drops, the lactobacilli lose their ability to suppress the rest of the microbial population.
The bouncers are essentially removed from the door.
The club is wide open.
Wide open. Without lactic acid suppressing them, opportunistic microbes that are normally kept in check begin to multiply aggressively.
Which leads to infections.
Right. If anaerobic bacteria like Gardnerella vaginalis overgrow, it results in bacterial vaginosis, or BV.
And if it's a fungus?
If fungal organisms like Candida albicans take over, it triggers a severe yeast infection.
We should probably distinguish between the symptoms of a temporary chemical irritation from chlorine and the signs of a full-blown microbial infection caused by that pH shift.
That's an important distinction. Chemical irritation from chlorine often presents as broad redness and a dry, stinging sensation.
Which usually clears up pretty fast, right?
Yeah, it usually resolves within 24 to 48 hours if the area is rinsed with fresh water and allowed to recover.
But an infection is different.
An infection fundamentally changes the biological output of the tissue.
Like the discharge changes.
Exactly. A yeast infection typically presents with intense localized itching and a thick, white, clumpy discharge, which is actually a massive fungal hyphae.
Yikes.
MBV. Bacterial vaginosis, conversely, creates a thin, grayish discharge characterized by a highly distinct, fishy odor.
From the bacteria.
Right, which is the result of bacteria releasing volatile amines.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The environment dictates the severity of the threat. A standard swimming pool is rough on the microbiome, but hot tubs are basically designed to be pathogen incubators.
If we connect this to the bigger picture of microbial kinetics, hot tubs represent the ultimate stress test for human mucosal tissues.
They're just a perfect storm.
They really are. Hot tubs maintain an alkaline pH, they utilize harsh chemical oxidizers, and crucially, they are heated to temperatures between 95 and 102 degrees Fahrenheit.
Which perfectly mirrors human body temperature.
The thermal kinetics are just disastrous for our defenses. Candida albicans, the primary driver of yeast infections, is a thermally sensitive organism.
Meaning it loves the heat.
It achieves maximum proliferation at exact human body temperature. While the heat is accelerating fungal growth, it is simultaneously accelerating the degradation of the free chlorine.
Because heat destroys chlorine.
Yes. The chemical disinfectant off-gases and vanishes much faster in heated water. You are left with a small volume of water packed with human organic matter, sitting at an ideal incubation temperature, with a rapidly failing chemical defense.
That perfectly explains the phenomenon of hot tub folliculitis mentioned in the dermatology reports.
That condition perfectly illustrates the failure of degraded chlorine. Pseudomonas aeruginosa is a hardy bacteria that can survive in underchlorinated hot tubs.
And the heat opens up the skin, right?
Exactly. The hot water causes the pores and hair follicles on the human body to dilate, allowing the bacteria to easily penetrate the skin.
And then you get the rash.
Within 12 to 48 hours, it erupts into an incredibly itchy, bumpy red rash.
So we've established how chemically treated water structurally alters our defenses. But nature has its own destructive mechanisms, and our post-swim habits often act as threat multipliers.
They definitely do.
What is the biological impact of natural ocean water? Because there's no chlorine there.
While salt water can be therapeutically beneficial for certain keratinized skin conditions, it is a severe hazard for delicate mucosal tissues
Because of the salt.
because of the physics of osmosis. Ocean water is highly hypertonic. That means it contains a significantly higher concentration of salt than human cells do.
So the salt pulls the water out.
Right. When mucosal tissues are exposed to ocean water, the water inside the human cells is rapidly drawn out across the cell membrane in an attempt to dilute the surrounding salt.
The mucosal cells literally dehydrate and shrink, losing their protective mucus layer.
The desiccation is rapid and severe, and when that mucosal tissue loses its hydration, it immediately loses its elasticity.
Making it fragile.
Very fragile. The friction of simply walking or swimming in a bathing suit then causes microscopic tears in the dried-out tissue.
Creating physical entry points for bacteria.
Exactly, and freshwater sources like lakes and rivers avoid the osmotic shock of the ocean, but they introduce agricultural runoff, high coliform counts, and potentially toxic cyanobacteria directly to the vulvar region.
Wow. But out of all the environmental threats outlined in the research, the most pervasive threat multiplier is completely behavioral.
It is entirely in our control.
It's the classic summer habit of lounging around in a wet swimsuit.
From a clinical perspective, lingering in a damp swimsuit is one of the most biologically destructive things you can do to your intimate health.
But isn't air drying in the sun part of the classic summer experience?
It is, but synthetic swimwear fabrics like nylon and spandex are inherently non-breathable.
They trap everything in.
Right. When they are wet, they act as an occlusive barrier, trapping the ambient heat of the body and the moisture of the water directly against the vulva.
It creates a miniature greenhouse effect.
The physics of the greenhouse effect perfectly describe what is happening. You are engineering a custom-built, dark, warm, hypermoist incubator.
Just perfect for yeast?
Fungal organisms like yeast require exactly those conditions to aggressively multiply. The clinical guidelines highlight that women who remain in wet swimwear for several hours double their statistical risk of developing yeast infections and severe vulvar dermatitis.
Double the risk, just from not changing.
Compared to those who change into dry clothing immediately, yes.
So what does this all mean for long-term health? Because the medical consensus statement from the British Menopause Society points out that these risks don't remain static.
No, biology changes over time.
Right. As a woman's body ages, the physical structure of the vaginal mucosa undergoes a profound transformation, making the threat of recreational water exponentially worse.
This brings us to genitourinary syndrome of menopause, or GSM. We really have to examine the cellular mechanics of how dropping hormone levels structurally alter the tissue.
It's all about estrogen, isn't it?
It is. Estrogen is the primary hormone responsible for maintaining blood flow, cellular turnover, and the overall thickness of the vaginal mucosa.
And during perimenopause and menopause, systemic estrogen levels decline sharply.
And when that estrogen support vanishes, the superficial epithelial cells, the exact cells responsible for producing glycogen, begin to thin out dramatically.
Oh, the food source for the lactobacilli.
Exactly. The cells often decrease to represent less than 10% of the tissue layer.
So the biological domino effect reverses itself. Without estrogen, there is virtually no glycogen production.
Right. Without glycogen, the lactobacilli starve and their population crashes.
And without lactobacilli producing lactic acid, the vaginal pH naturally climbs well above 5.0.
The acidic armor is naturally stripped away by the aging process, but the structural alterations penetrate much deeper into the extracellular matrix.
The actual connective tissue loses its ability to stretch and absorb impact.
The mechanical failure of the tissue is profound. The collagen fibers, which normally form a flexible, supportive lattice, begin to cross-link and fuse together, rendering the tissue rigid.
It gets stiff.
Yes. Simultaneously, the elastin fibers, which provide the crucial snapback elasticity, undergo enzymatic fragmentation. They literally break apart.
That sounds incredibly painful.
The resulting mucosal tissue is incredibly thin, friable, dry, and highly susceptible to mechanical tearing.
Plunging that heavily compromised, rigid, glycogen-depleted tissue into a highly alkaline, chlorinated swimming pool must cause immense biological stress.
It induces a massive alkaline shock. Because the protective lipid layers and acidic barriers are already gone, the chlorine penetrates deeply into the thin tissue,
Causing microscopic burns.
causing severe chemical burns on a microscopic level. For women dealing with GSM, swimming often leads to intense interior pain, burning, and sudden urinary urgency.
Our sources noted that this chemical trauma is frequently misdiagnosed by doctors as a post-swim urinary tract infection.
The misdiagnosis rate is incredibly frustrating. The symptoms of severe chemical irritation perfectly mimic a bacterial UTI.
So they just prescribe antibiotics.
Women are routinely prescribed broad-spectrum antibiotics for these assumed infections.
Which makes everything worse.
It does. The antibiotics then obliterate whatever fragile population of protective lactobacilli they had left, triggering a vicious cycle of chronic dysbiosis.
Because the root cause wasn't an invading bacteria at all.
No, it was the chemical structural alteration of GSM-compromised tissue by pool water.
Knowing the precise biological mechanisms of how chlorinated swimming pools or hot tubs structurally alter our skin and microbiomes gives us a massive advantage, though.
It empowers us to actually do something about it.
We can look at the actionable defense strategies provided by our clinical sources to actively protect ourselves.
The overarching goal of these strategies is to implement external environmental defenses to support the body's internal biology.
So, step one, before you even swim.
The most effective clinical recommendation is to create a physical hydrophobic barrier before you ever enter the water.
Our sources suggest using specialized physical garments like the V-seal or heavily applying a barrier balm.
Applying a thick layer of a hydrophobic ointment like standard petroleum, aquaphor, or even natural coconut oil externally before swimming utilizes basic chemistry to your advantage.
Because oil and water don't mix.
Exactly. Lipids naturally repel water. The balm acts as an artificial stratum corneum, physically blocking the alkaline pool water from making contact with the mucosal cells.
And preventing the chemical neutralization of your natural lactic acid.
Right. That handles the pre-swim defense. For the post-swim protocol, breaking the greenhouse effect is the immediate priority.
Get out of the wetsuit.
You have to remove the wet swimsuit instantly and rinse the area with clean, lukewarm, fresh water to flush away the residual chlorine and salt.
But the sources are incredibly strict about the mechanics of how you wash. Do not scrub.
Do not scrub. The mechanics of friction will only compound the damage. The chlorine has already dissolved the lipid mortar of your skin barrier.
So scrubbing just tears the skin off.
Applying mechanical friction with a loofah or a rough washcloth will physically shear away the compromised, weakened epithelial cells, creating microabrasions.
So just let the water do the work.
You must rely on the gentle flow of fresh water and then softly pat the area dry with a clean towel.
Clothing choices also dictate how fast the ecosystem recovers. The guidelines universally recommend loose-fitting, breathable fabrics like cotton or silk underwear, and actively avoiding tight synthetic leggings.
Airflow dictates the local environment. Breathable fabrics allow ambient air to circulate,
Which cools things down.
It drops the localized temperature and evaporates any residual trapped moisture. This physical shift in the environment actively halts the proliferation of moisture-loving fungi.
And we also must address the concept of the vagina as a self-cleaning organ. You should never use scented soaps, bubble baths, bath salts, or douches.
Throwing artificial fragrances and harsh soaps into an ecosystem that is already battling pool chemicals is essentially throwing gasoline on a fire.
It's just too much stress.
The biological fallout is severe. Artificial fragrances contain volatile organic compounds that act as potent contact allergens on already inflamed, chemically stressed tissue.
And the soap just washes away any good stuff left over.
The surfactants in commercial soaps will further strip away any remaining protective mucosal lipids, destroying whatever lactobacilli survived the swim.
So it really just cleans itself.
The internal ecosystem uses natural secretions to clear cellular debris perfectly well on its own. Warm water is the only external cleanser required.
There is one final mechanical habit recommended across the board. Always urinate after swimming, particularly after soaking in a hot tub.
The physics of urination act as a mechanical flush. The volume and pressure of the urine passing through the urethra physically washes out introduced coliforms or Pseudomonas bacteria
Before they can stick around.
before they have the opportunity to adhere to the bladder wall and cause a true infection. These strategies provide a framework for working seamlessly with your biology rather than against it.
To wrap up our deep dive today, we've systematically uncovered how recreational waters act as profound biological stressors.
They are a massive challenge to our systems.
We've seen how the high pH and oxidative power of chlorine physically strip the lipids from our stratum corneum, causing immense transepidermal water loss,
And we've explored how alkaline pool water neutralizes the lactic acid produced by our unique, highly evolved vaginal microbiome.
leaving the gates open for infection. And we understand how the mechanical realities of wet swimsuits, hot tub temperatures, and the dropping estrogen of menopause act as severe threat multipliers.
But there is a way to fight back.
Right. By utilizing physical barrier bombs, breaking the greenhouse effect quickly, and supporting our body's natural acidity, we can effectively protect our evolutionary armor.
This actually raises an important, overarching question for us to leave you with today.
Let's hear it.
We established how the ancient shift to an agricultural, starch-heavy diet inadvertently provided the glycogen necessary to build our unique, highly protective, acidic microbiome in the first place.
Right, the farming shift.
So if diet and environmental pressures shaped our internal defenses thousands of years ago, what is happening to our biology right now? What will a lifetime of chronic exposure to broad-spectrum sanitizers, highly alkaline synthetic waters, and heavily processed modern diets do to the evolution of the human microbiome over the next few millennia? Are we actively, slowly washing away our evolutionary biological armor?
That is a staggering question to mull over the next time you're floating in the deep end. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, remember to barrier up before you swim, and we'll catch you next time.